Friends in the Corner podcast. Stories and topics from around the state of Kentucky. Welcome back into the show, everybody. This is Dan Pauly recording from beautiful Lexington, Kentucky. Happy to be back with you guys. And guys, the madness is officially over. The college basketball season has come to an end. First off, congratulations to the new champs, the Virginia Cavaliers. What a storied comeback that had to be, being a number one seed, losing last year to UMBC, being the first number one seed to be upset by a 16 seed, to being a number one seed winning the tournament. Well, nonetheless, we're getting ready to talk a little bit more about that college basketball season here on this episode. I've invited a good buddy of mine, Mr. Andrew Williams. He is a podcaster out of Harlan County, and he runs Under the Blue Banners, a sports podcast down that way. So we're going to talk to him about his new show that he started. We're going to talk to him about this UK season. We're also going to talk to him a little bit about the NFL draft. And then we're actually going to do a second episode with him where we're going to recap WrestleMania, which took place this last weekend. So stay tuned for that. Those are both coming out this week. But guys, the season's over, and as far as Kentucky is concerned, we did make it to the Elite Eight. Didn't make it anywhere past that. And this season has just been a very, I would say, an up and down season. There were good parts. There were bad parts. There are times we were on top of the world. There are times we were maybe down there. There's times we were worried if PJ is even going to make the tournament. 'Tis the way of a UK fan to go through all your emotions like Kentucky goes through the seasons. But have you guys ever asked yourself this question? What does it look like for a non-member of Big Blue Nation to look at UK fans? Well, my friend Katie Rose got the experience just a few weeks ago during the UK Houston game. So I wanted her to share a little bit about her insight as a non-UK fan to what she saw when she went out to the bars that night. So I'm going to let Katie take it from here. BBN, I think we all know how wild and crazy this fan base can be. But have you ever asked yourself this question? What does it look like to be a non-Kentucky fan looking at a Kentucky fan? The outside looking in. Well, my friend Katie Rose from Austin, Texas, got to experience that firsthand. Katie Rose, how you doing today?
Happy as a clam.
And Katie, in as much detail as possible, can you tell us about your experience with Big Blue Nation this past weekend?
Okay, so Big Blue Nation. Well, so I come from a football family and have seen the wild and craziness of football. But I don't watch any college basketball at all. Never cared for it, but since I was spending this time in Lexington, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to get into March Madness. I'm going to see what it's like. I'm going to go to the belly of the beast. I bought my blue t-shirt and was going to meet my friends for the 10 o'clock game the other night. So we went to Mirror Twin, and it's like everybody is in their late 30s and 40s. And we were on the side that just has the beer, but everybody was bringing the booze over from the opposite end. But for everybody drinking as much as they were drinking, it was very quiet and like chill. And I was really expecting it to be kind of like wild and, you know, like there would be like an electricity in the air, but it was like eerily kind of, chill. I was like, okay, well, maybe it's like not what I thought. So then the game is great and it's close until the end. And in the last few moments, you can start to feel the energy in the room change. And people are like darting their eyes around. They are looking from corner to corner. Some guy was outside. He just kept running from outside to inside to outside to inside. And I was like, okay, something's happening. There's like a storm brewing. And in the last like few moments of the game, all of a sudden everybody started like to get on their feet, and there was just this like crescendo of energy. And I went from being like super excited to being like, oh I'm in trouble. I need to get out of here. And the game came down to like, it was like a 3-pointer and 2 fouls and the guy was shooting, and all of a sudden like the whole place started to like vibrate. Like it was like everyone was screaming. People were running around. I have friends who are like genteel women who were like peeling their skin off their faces, ripping their clothes from their chests. Like someone was like peeing in the corner. People were running laps. I was like, what is happening? I have to get into an Uber right now. And then, I also ripped my shirt and started screaming, "Go Cats," and really got into it. But yeah, it was amazing. I was like, these are my people.
All right, I want to thank Katie Rose for coming on and sharing just a little bit about her perspective of Big Blue Nation. And guys, I think the way that she described her experience is the best way to define UK. Passion with a little bit of chaos mixed in. And that is true for any UK sports fan, any diehard UK sports fan you ever meet. That includes my guest that I'm having on here today, Andrew Williams. Andrew Williams is a teacher down in Harlan County, and he is a diehard UK sports fan. I knew him in college, and I can attest to his fandom. But he decided not too long ago that because of his passions, he wanted to start his own sports podcast down there. And he did that just a few weeks ago called Under the Blue Banners. And he's had some amazing guests on from the likes of Aaron Torres from Fox Sports 1, Ryan Lemon from KSR. And he's continuing to grow his brand and continuing to get noticed around the state for his media, and he is great on the mic. I'm going to leave a couple of his episodes down in the description if you want to go check him out there. But I wanted to have Andrew on here just to help recap the college basketball season. We're going to talk about the entire basketball season, the March Madness tournament. We're going to talk about UK and their showing out in the tournament. We're going to talk about Coach Cal's new contract, which I know a lot of people have been talking about lately, and we're even going to talk a little bit about the NFL draft as well, because there's going to be a lot of blue represented in that draft as well. So we'll talk about it. So I'm excited to have Andrew on here to talk about all this different stuff. As I also mentioned, after we're done with this episode, coming out tomorrow will be an episode where we recap WrestleMania. So be sure to check out that episode as well. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Williams. Here we go. All right, Andrew Williams, my friend. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It feels like it's been a couple years since we talked to each other. For those of you who don't kind of know some of the background between me and Andrew, we both went to the University of Kentucky around the same time. We were both involved in Christian Student Fellowship, CSF, there on campus. And the first time we ever met each other was in the heart of Manhattan in New York City for the CSF New York trip. What a trip that was.
Absolutely, man. I still think back to, like, there was a macaroni and cheese place that we ate on that trip that I still think about to this day.
Yeah, it was. Still, that was a great trip. One of my favorite parts, because that, for those of you who don't know, that was 2012, the year we won the national title.
Yes.
And we got to enjoy the first round of that tournament in the heart of Manhattan at a nice little bar up there called Jack Dempsey's, which is the official UK bar of Manhattan. So if you're in the Manhattan area, be sure to go check out Jack Dempsey's. But this is the first time me and Andrew have gotten to catch up with each other in a couple years, Andrew. So what's going on with your life, man, since we've last seen each other?
Man, a lot. I moved back home. I graduated in 2013, and I was able to move back home, which, just being from a small town like Harlan, you kind of feel like that always calls you back. And it's such a family-oriented place that kind of always calls you back. And I was able to move home, and I became a teacher. I'm teaching special education right now in our local county school system. And I got married, and I'm getting ready to have a kid. And lots been going on, man. It's been hectic, but I've been blessed, and it's been a good couple years.
So I don't know if you know this, but you're the third person, the third male to be on my show to tell me about how they're having a kid. So
For those of you, yeah. So for those of you who have listened to our previous episode we did with Matt Smith from BB and Chalk Talk, he's getting ready to have a kid. I did a recording with Evan Drysdale, which is coming up, and he's getting ready to have a kid. And now Andrew Williams. So this is the season where everyone I know is having a kid. I just turned 28. I'm not ready for that, so I'm just gonna keep where I'm at. And I'm happy to hear, man, that you're doing so well back home. I'm glad, Harlan County, where you're from, called back to your heart. Dayton, Ohio has not done that for me yet. I'm still up here in Lexington trying to figure that all out. But, man, you're down there in Harlan. You're teaching. You're married. You're working as a teacher out there. And just in the last couple of weeks, a month or so, you've also been working on this new podcast you've been doing. So can you tell us a little bit about what your podcast is all about?
Yeah, my podcast is called Under the Blue Banners, and it's a UK centric podcast where I'm kind of opening up to talk a little bit more just college basketball in general lately. And I've for most of my whole life, I'm an only child, so I mean I've just had to grow up just yapping at my parents about sports, and so I've kind of fine tuned my skill just by yelling at anybody who will listen about being mad at the basketball game or being frustrated that our season ended too soon. And so the last couple of weeks, I've got an opportunity to just start a podcast. And I went out and I just tried to do something that I'm passionate about. When I started talking about UK, man, it just came off the cuff pretty easy. And we've had 3 episodes so far. We were able to bring in Aaron Torres from Fox Sports 1, which was amazing to have on your first episode. And then we had Ryan Lemon on KSR, which, if you're from Kentucky, and you're a basketball fan, you probably have listened to KSR, that name, and that, he was an awesome guest. And then the last episode we had was just me yelling about the tournament. So, I mean, it's just been a fun ride the last couple of weeks to get to talk about something that I'm passionate about, and hopefully I've had people enjoy it as well.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking offline here. For those of you who haven't gotten to listen to a show, the link is going to be in the description of this episode here for you guys to go check out Under the Blue Banners. But Andrew's got some good content that he's been putting out there. His interviews with Aaron Torres and Ryan Lemon are great. His single show, his one-man show is even pretty good too. Great mic presence, and I'm just very excited for his new show that he's putting out there. And hopefully you guys go and jump on that as well. If you're a fan of my show, please go support him, just like you've supported all the other podcasts that we've helped support in the state of Kentucky as well. But Andrew, just tell us a little bit here. You've started this show. You've talked about how you were yelling at your parents when you were a kid about sports. But what is your interest in UK sports? Where did this come from? Tell us a little bit about your history of your passion with Kentucky.
Honestly, like I'm sitting here thinking back, and this is going to sound completely cheesy, and it is. So, like, if you've not grown up like this, you will not understand anything that I'm getting ready to say. But like when you said talk about your passion for UK sports, I sat here and got chill bumps, like legitimately, because that's just like it has been such a thing. I remember my first memory, like one of my earliest memories of my life. My uncle used to tape games on a VCR. And he would tape college basketball games on a VCR. And I remember, being an only child, man, you just kind of gotta play with yourself and just like make things happen because it's so boring most of the time. But I remember going down to my grandparents' house and sliding in, an old VCR tape of like the 96 team or the 90, the 94, 95 teams. And I would sit there for hours and just like shoot a basketball or a little plush basketball into a garbage can. And I would be sitting there playing, and I would be trying to play out the game in my grandmother's living room, and she would walk in and be like, what are you doing in here? You're commentating and talking and all this stuff. And I'm just like, listen, I love it, and I fell in love with it then. And man, it's just been like it's such a passion for me because I was able to go to school there. I was able to witness like some really cool stuff. Man, when me and you were in school, like getting to witness a national championship and having that moment of where we're basically all running out on the street and having those moments of like being at CSF, like that was crazy.
Exactly. And I saw a little video that went, if you want to call it viral, when CSF from CSF, when they were playing, when when UK played the other day, but it was nothing compared to like when we went there.
No, and it's like it was crazy. Like there was actually a clip from that year where CSF was on Jimmy Fallon,
Yeah.
and I mean it got so big, and just being able to have those moments, and that's something. And like I said, if you're not from the area, you may not understand that, but like that's something that me and my dad always had. Like we could sit down and watch a UK game together, and that's something that like we can still do together. And so that for me, man, it's just like it's been such a huge part of my life that I'm just completely passionate about it.
And you've kind of talked about how you've taken this passion, you've kind of cultivated it into this podcast and developed it into something you can have a platform to talk about here. And, you even talked about how we both had the privilege of going to UK right when we won a national title and being a part of all the hysteria that went on there.
Yeah.
We all burned a couch.
Absolutely, man. Like the other day, I was getting prepared for the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, and I was like, man, do I think I can get away with trying to find like an old couch around in Harlan and like burning it down? What would happen, So, and me and my wife actually, we decided after Kentucky played in the Sweet 16, we decided that we wanted to go. Like, I woke up Saturday morning and I looked at her. I was like, Caitlin, let's go to the Elite Eight. And she kind of thought I was joking because she's pregnant. She's been really sick and stuff. And so I went ahead and I just ordered the tickets. And like I ordered our tickets to the game. I booked our hotel and I was like, all right, let's go. So we drove 12 hours from Harlan County to Kansas City, Missouri with my wife who is pregnant. And she was a trooper, man. She was killing it. And we drove all that way and then we lost, but it was cool.
Yeah, God bless that woman. So the passion of a UK fan.
Absolutely.
No bounds. But, and that's what I want to really talk about here today, because I did a preview of March Madness earlier this year where we talked about some of the expectations we were thinking for Kentucky as far as where we thought they were going to wind up in this tournament. They didn't quite make us thought as far as I thought they were going to, but we'll talk about that with the UK Auburn game. I'm sure you were there to witness it in person, so we'll definitely talk about that. But man, March Madness is now behind us. So overall, let's talk here. What did you think of this year's tournament from start to finish? Not just with UK, but overall. And we can get into. I've heard some of your shows, so I'm sure you have a lot to say about some of the teams that played, some of the calls that were made. So let's dive into it.
I would say, like, if I was trying to think of this earlier and I was trying to kind of process in my mind, like, how I felt about the whole tournament. And honestly, if I could describe the tournament in one word, it would be surprising, because I kind of feel like that if you look at my bracket right now, like I think I scored like a 27% on ESPN's whole bracket shindig thing. Like I was horrible. And I mean, I've watched a ton of college basketball. And what you had was, like, in the first two rounds, there was barely any upsets. And if you're a fan of the tournament, like, you like the upsets, you like those Cinderella teams beating the higher ranked teams. So you got past the first two rounds, and then you got to, okay, all your big name teams are still in there. And I hated this, but Duke was the story. Like, Duke's been the story the whole year. They had Zion, and I hate Duke. Like, I passionately hate, like, it's unhealthy how much I hate Duke. But they were the story. So you got to the second weekend and you're thinking, all right, we're going to have a Duke. We're going to have a Gonzaga. We're going to have, maybe Kentucky, maybe Tennessee, Virginia, somebody like that in our Final Four. And you get to the second weekend and it's surprising. Like, Duke loses to Michigan State in a game that they probably shouldn't have lost. And then you get Kentucky loses to Auburn and Carolina loses to Auburn. And I was frustrated the whole tournament. I mean, I feel like I hashed it out. If you listen to my third episode the other day, I hashed out on the referees. I was very frustrated at the referees. But, like, I do feel like there were a couple close games where the refs were a little bit too much involved and they were really inconsistent. I was frustrated at that. But then you get a Final Four that was pretty boring, I thought. And then the championship was surprisingly good. Like, you had two really good defensive teams in Virginia and Texas Tech. And I was thinking, Like last night, I was getting ready to go to. I was like, this is going to put me to sleep. I'll be able to get up and get ready for school early the next morning because I'll be good. And they actually had a really good game. Like it was pretty high scoring, and it's like everything you thought about the tournament going into it, I kind of felt was the exact opposite of what actually happened. And that just goes to show you, man, when you get in a tournament like this, that's why they call it March Madness. When you get in a tournament like this, it is untelling what is going to happen, and it's frustrating, but that's what makes it amazing.
I agree. And it was definitely a very interesting year because, like you were saying at the start, you're kind of looking – and I think it's just because we're so accustomed to seeing that, all right, we know a big team's going to go down. We look for a Lehigh beating Duke. We look for a UMBC beating Virginia. Didn't really happen this year. If there's really a Cinderella story here, it came in a number one seed in Virginia redeeming themselves from last year. And that, in the tournament itself and watching that finals game last night, I mean, it was a better game than I thought it was going to be. Is it the game I wanted to watch? Not necessarily,
right.
But for what it could have been, it was a lot better than what I thought. Definitely watching them going to overtime here and then UAV winning 85-77.
And what else is interesting, what else is interesting though is like we had a team in our own conference in Auburn all year that kind of underperformed, and then when the tournament rolls around, that they kind of hit their stride in the SEC tournament. They go out and win the SEC tournament. Then we get to the NCAA tournament. They almost lose the first game to New Mexico State. Then they roll off a very impressive run of they beat Kansas, they beat Carolina, and they throttled them. Like they destroyed those two teams. And a Carolina team that a lot of people thought was going to win the championship. And then they played Kentucky in a game that unfortunately I drove 12 hours to watch them lose. And even then, Auburn did what they had to do to win. And here's the thing: they should have beat Virginia. Like they, with 12 seconds left, they've got a 3-point lead. They should have beat Virginia. And maybe the Cinderella story was a team that was in our own conference our whole year, and we didn't even realize what we had.
And that you bring up a great story in just in Auburn, it was interesting because at the start of the year, they were talked about as like, hey, you got to watch this Auburn team. Like they're going to be something. And a lot of people who've watched the SEC have been like, this is Kentucky's conference. It's like, we don't worry too much. Then they take Duke to the limit. And then after that Duke game, it's just kind of, here and there. We beat them twice.
One time by 27. We beat them by 27 at home.
You're right. Exactly. It's like we whipped their ass. And then then they get on that hot streak. They won the SEC tournament. And I think that was when I saw in the SEC tournament, I was like, okay, this team, Bruce Pearl's got a team here that's fiery and ready to win. He's got great guards on this team that will play all the entire length of the game to get where they need to be. And so I did have in my bracket, thankfully, Auburn going pretty far. I had them meeting with us in the Elite Eight. I did have in my bracket, I did have Kentucky winning, but
as all Kentucky fans do.
As all Kentucky fans do. even when the odds are stacked against you, you go for Kentucky.
Even when we're not in a tournament, like I'm still picking. Like the year we went to the NIT, I was still picking Kentucky to win the championship. So it don't matter, man.
Right, exactly. I was like, who am I rooting for? Louisville? It's like, there is no champion for that year anyway. So
exactly, that's been erased. We can't talk about that. So
exactly. So what title? So, but yeah. So let's talk about this, man. So, what did you think of Kentucky's showing in this tournament from start to finish, from when they started against Abilene Christian to when they exited with Auburn? What would you talk about as far as the stance they made when they were in this tournament?
Well, I think going into the tournament, they were unfortunately, and I've thought a lot about this. Unfortunately, I think Kentucky this season was towards the end of the season kind of just like snake bit. Like they had some injuries towards the end of the year that I think really set us back. There was a time we played Tennessee in Rupp Arena when I think we kind of hit our peak. And I think at that point in time, for like a week or a week and a half, we were the best team in the country. You had Duke that had Zion out and they were kind of struggling a little bit. Carolina was playing okay. But I think when we were healthy for that like week and a half, 2-week stretch, Kentucky was the best team in the country. And we go in, and a couple of games later, I think we were playing at South Carolina or at Georgia. Reed Travis gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And Reed Travis was really important because he's just a smart player. Like he was a fifth-year senior. He was a guy that kind of brought a level of maturity to the team. He gets hurt, and he's out 2 weeks. So all the progress that you had, you've kind of now lost, since he's gone. So we get to the SEC tournament, and Reed comes back, and he plays, but he's not 100%. We lose to Tennessee, but you're thinking, okay, we got a full team. We're ready to rock going into the NCAA tournament. And then in the first game of the NCAA tournament, we get ready to play Abilene Christian. And listen, I'm excited. Like I'm ready. I got all this stuff ready. And I see on Twitter that PJ Washington is in a cast, and he's riding around on a scooter. And I'm literally at that point about to die because I'm thinking, well, there goes our season. And I mean, PJ, definitely our best player, this year. He was the most impressive player, and he's in a cast, on the first game of the tournament. So we play Abilene Christian. I thought we played pretty well. We Abilene Christian was a team that was kind of that they couldn't match up with us athletically, and so we just kind of we kind of dominated that game, which I was impressed with. Your second game was Wofford. We didn't have PJ again. That was kind of a boring game to watch because everybody kind of expected Wofford to hit 33s and all this stuff. And we really locked down their best player, Fletcher McGee, and he had a terrible game. But we won kind of a grinded out game. Well, then the second weekend comes and we're playing Houston, and everybody's kind of, curious to whether or not we're going to get PJ back. PJ comes off the bench against Houston, and he plays great. Like he played like he had never missed. And, it takes – we kind of pulled ahead early in that game, but then it takes Tyler Hero hitting a big shot at the end of the game to seal that win for us. And then after we beat Houston, I thought – because Carolina got beat the next night, I thought we're winning the national championship. Like PJ's back. We're here. Like the roads opened up for us. The heavens have shone down on us, and we're going to win the national championship in the same year that I'm going to be a dad. And this is destiny. Like, and all this stuff was meant to happen. And then we drive to Kansas City and we play Auburn, and they played they just caught us on a bad night. And we ended our season a little bit earlier than I'd expected to. And I thought it was a kind of a disappointing end to a season, because I think if you play Auburn 10 times, we win that game 8 times. And they just caught us on a night that, that we just weren't hitting shots and weren't playing very good. And I'll be honest with you, I watched the 4 teams play this past weekend. If Kentucky's there, I think they're the best team. And that's kind of what bums me out about this the most.
Yeah, I listened to your most recent episode that you did when you kind of mentioned that you were pulling for, and I think this is kind of adventurous in itself here, for a best of 3 series between the top Sweet 16 teams. Is that right?
Yeah. That was my idea.
Yeah, and maybe that's true, because it really, the NCAA tournament is a bit of a gamble. It's like, if you have one bad night, that's it. You're going home.
Yeah.
If you go in the NBA finals, if you lose one game, great. You got 6 more opportunities to try to get that game. So, it's definitely was interesting to see, because I thought, especially after watching North Carolina and watching that Okeke kid get hurt, I was like, okay, maybe there's not much to worry about. And, I don't know what type of mentality the Kentucky team went out there with at that Auburn game, but definitely was not the result we were looking for.
And I'll tell you something. That was interesting about that game. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'll tell you something that's interesting about that game. Going into that game, being there, there was probably, I would say, 60% Kentucky fans, 25 to 30% Auburn fans, and then just maybe 10 to 15% people that were just there to watch a basketball game. And the crowd was throughout the game, and I think this was indicative of the game in itself. The Kentucky crowd was really nervous. Like we knew we were supposed to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
The Auburn crowd acted like, honestly, that they were at a party and they had nothing to lose. So the Auburn crowd kind of dominated the Kentucky crowd, because I felt like the Kentucky crowd and even the players knew that, hey, you're supposed to win this game. Like, don't screw this up. And the Auburn crowd was like, well, crap, we didn't even know we were going to be here. So let's make a fun time out of it. And I think that's what happened in the game as well.
I agree. There was definitely some nerves. I remember I was at work that night watching it over a computer monitor, just thinking to myself, like, how do we get to this point with Auburn? But I think it does say a lot about Bruce Pearl and the teams that he can put together and how long he's been, doing this for. And, even though we had an exit out of the Elite Eight, still better than we were last year. We had a exit out of the Sweet 16. And even the University of Kentucky themselves was okay with that. So much so that they gave Cal a lifetime contract.
Yeah.
It was just reported the other day that after being offered a $48 million 6-year contract from UCLA, UK offered Cal a 10-year contract to keep him here. And then they also promised him that after he retired at Kentucky, that he would be offered a paid ambassador role. So just to lay out some of Cal's stats, since he came to Kentucky, UK has been to 4 Final Four appearances. They've been to 2 championship games, and they've won a championship. So tell me, what do you think of his new contract offer? And do you think that what the resume he's put up so far, do you think it's worth the offer that he's been given?
I will tell you that during his time at Kentucky, there have been moments where I have been frustrated. And I'm starting with that because everything else I'm going to say is just like totally endearing, because I absolutely love Cal. Like I do. I think he's awesome. But there have been a couple of moments in his tenure that I've been frustrated with Cal. And it's been specific games. And I think this goes back to what we were talking about. Once you get in the one-game scenario, like anything can happen. And so you had his first year here with John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, who I still think are, 2 of the greatest freshmen to ever play in the NCAA. They lose to a West Virginia team that had no reason beating them. 2015, you have a 38-0 perfect record, perfect season with a team that was absolutely, it was so loaded. They were able to bring in basically, 2 different starting fives. They platooned, and it was a fun year. And then you lose to Wisconsin in the Final Four, which was very frustrating. And then there's been instances where I've been frustrated, but I'll say this, and I believe this wholeheartedly. There will never be another coach that works at this university that is more perfect for this job than John Calipari. He's perfect, man. Like, I think that you have to have, like, you have to be confident. You have to be sure of yourself. Like, you have to have I guess, I've heard people call it swagger or whatever. Like, you got to have a little swag about you. And Cal is the embodiment of that, man. And listen, his resume at this school has been better than any coach besides Adolph Rupp in Kentucky's history. Like the Final Fours, the Elite Eights, the wins, the one national championship is the only thing that I wish, if we had 2, people would be like renaming Kentucky like Caltucky. And that's stupid, but like that's what would be happening. If he would have won 2015, there would be no complaints. But the one national championship, it kind of hangs over us a little bit. I think that he'll get another one. But when I heard the news that, you're giving Cal a lifetime deal, I was very, very, very excited about it, because I think Cal's the type of guy that, like, he needs to feel wanted. He needs to feel appreciated. He wants people to know, hey, listen, like, I'm killing it at this school, and you guys should understand, how good this is. And I'm really excited about it, because I kind of feel like that locks him down for a while. Now, let me ask you a question, because I'm a psycho fanatic, like UK basketball freak. How do you feel about Cal? Like I know that you're a UK fan, but like I don't think you're like on the crazy level that I am. How do you feel about Cal?
So, and I think that this is where we have some agreements and differences here. And I'll tell you what's really changed a lot of my mindset about Cal. And a lot of it was that documentary, the 30 for 30, that came out a few years ago about him. So originally for me, the way I viewed my fandom of Kentucky, and I still believe a category of UK fans that still believe this way. We want to love and we want our program, Kentucky, to be as successful and efficient and good as Alabama football. That's like the equivalent. If there's a coach that on another level that Cal is sometimes compared to, it's probably Nick Saban. And so we've been able to recruit all this talent here and bring in all these people who have been McDonald's All-Americans and they've been first-round draft picks. But only one of those teams has brought us a national title home. And so and this is where things change, because when I listened to Cal's documentary, and I thought, and this is just me personally saying, whether I was a UK fan or not, I think that was probably one of the top 5 best 30 for 30s that was ever done.
Oh yeah, it's really, really good.
Really good. And I think it kind of gave me a new perspective where it's like, yes, championships matter to a degree, but he cares more about what happens when these kids leave the court, how they take care of their families. And he's just kind of taking advantage of the one in a good way, using the one and done rule to bring names to Kentucky, but also get these kids set up so they have successful NBA careers. And I mean, you can't lie that a lot of the guys who've come through Kentucky, I don't know if they would have been successful if they didn't go meet Cal. Like Davis, maybe Booker. I think Booker is Booker because of his time here at Kentucky. I think Jamal Murray is Jamal Murray because of his time with Cal. And so I do have that side to it. But the other side to it is like, yeah, those guys are all gone and they're making their money doing good, but the fan base is still here in Lexington. And what do we have to show for it? We have 2 championship appearances in the time he's been here. And we've only won one of those titles. And I know I read an article you did not too long ago where you kind of mentioned how Cal's kind of on the other end of his career, and how his legacy be remembered. And I guess that's where I started asking myself this question. Maybe we can discuss this too. And I've brought this question up before to another podcaster on my show before. How important is it for Cal to win another title before he ends his career? Because the coaches in the NCAA he's compared to, Coach K, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, they've all won multiple titles, some of them in lesser time than Cal. And Cal's still holding on to one. So, I guess where does, yes, all this stuff is happening good for Kentucky. Where's the line between that, all this stuff that's happening good for Kentucky, and where do we want more?
I think that Cal absolutely has to win another title. I think that if, let's say he retired today, let's say that there was a report that come out that he just stepped down and he's going to do whatever, and he stepped down. Like, as a fan, I would say, man, it's been a fun ride, but there would always be a but next to that. And I would say, but we should have won another title, or but we should have won more. And I'm with you. Like, on that point, I'm with you. I think it is imperative that Cal wins another title, because there's many coaches that have won one that are kind of just, that they're remembered as good coaches, but, a team can get hot. I mean, for God's sakes, Kevin Ollie won a championship at UConn. Kevin Ollie.
And where is he now?
And like he is now, he's like, I don't need, like, playing pickup basketball in a church league somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think what separates the good coaches from the great coaches are multiple championships. And I think it's really important that Cal gets another one, and I think that he will, and I really hope that he does, because I don't want his tenure here to be, underappreciated or undervalued. And it's kind of an internal conflict for us, because, and I actually think Cal's changed this a little bit. Cal talks a lot about, ending generational poverty for these kids and making a way for their family and doing this, that, and the other. And I remember the first year of the draft, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe, he said, "This is the greatest night in Kentucky basketball history." And I'm looking at that and I'm like, no, it's not. Like, yeah, these dudes that's great for them and their families, but like, we're still here, like they're moving on to the NBA, but we're still here. And I think it's an internal conflict for us. Yeah, we want to root for those guys. It's awesome. Listen, if you can go out and make millions of dollars, and I remember Eric Bledsoe in our first year. Eric Bledsoe used to live out of a car, like in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his mother lived out of a car, and now he is a millionaire because he came to Kentucky and Cal gave him an opportunity. But at the same time, and I do think Cal's changing this. We've built up a culture now where everybody feels like if I stay longer than a year, I'm a failure. And if I don't go after that first year, then if I have to come back to school, I'm a failure. And you've had people that have went to the NBA that aren't ready for it. And I think Cal's changing, his viewpoint on that a little bit. I think it's important that he brings back some guys and he also remembers, hey, this is absolutely about the players. It's about helping them and their families. But there's also plenty of people in this state, man, that this is all we got. Like we don't have a pro team. We don't have a pro football team. We got Kentucky, and that's it. Like what we're talking about is Kentucky. Like this is, man, I feel like these people are a part of my family. And so, like, yeah, it's very important for these kids, and we should focus on the kids, and it's awesome. But there's also a lot of people here in the state, man, that just admire and love Kentucky athletics so much that, it matters to us too.
Right. And, I hope in my previous statement, I wasn't coming across that I wasn't happy for these kids getting.
No, you were. No, you were fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there's anything, that is the great point. If that's not made clear, you should go watch that 30 for 30 on Cal, where he talks about the life change that happens because these players are able to use their talent to make the money they deserve. And it's very admirable. But definitely, it's always come in a Kentucky fan's mindset is how can we have both? How can we definitely make a good living for these kids, but also win those titles and have a dynasty the same way Alabama has been able to have a dynasty, the same way
absolutely.
Golden State's been able to have a dynasty, and do that. And still, that's changing a little bit here. I definitely do think players with more season under their belt definitely helps, and we may have that upcoming year depending on who's coming back and who's not. I know PJ Washington's already committed to the draft. Really no surprises there. Tyler Hero's still up in the air, I think, or has he made an announcement yet?
No, PJ's the only one that's made an announcement as far as like him going to the draft so far.
But I think about even that undefeated year, the 38 season.
Yeah.
Like that was made up of a pretty good amount of sophomores, which sophomores that's not really considered a real upperclassman back in Kentucky. Yeah, it is, but I mean, it's like you had the Harrison twins, you had Dakari, you had Cauley-Stein back for a junior year, and I think that you mix that with some really talented freshmen that we had, like Randall that year, and we were able to make a team that definitely made a statement for themselves here. And hopefully, if we have a team like that next year, mixed with a couple of these freshmen that are expected to do big things, we might have a team that's getting able to compete. The really, really early prospects that we have right now says that Kentucky, along with Duke, have an 8-1 chance of winning the championship.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Yeah, and actually, like, they got some big news. I don't know if you heard tonight. Ashton Hagen's committed. He's coming back next year.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
He announced on Instagram earlier that he's coming back for year 2, which I think's a really big deal. And you got the opportunity. That's what I'm hoping for, man. Like he's the one guy that I'm thinking if you get him back, and listen, I don't know, like maybe it's just like wishful thinking. I believe there's a chance he comes back. Like I literally do believe there's a chance he comes back. And I think Keldon's gone, but I think if you were to bring Tyler Hero back and you were to have the team that we're bringing back with EJ Montgomery, with Nick Richards, Emmanuel Quickly, Jamal Baker, now Ashton Hagens, if you could get Hero back along with the freshmen, we got coming in, which is you got Dante Allen, Tyrese Maxey, Khalil Whitney, and Keon Brooks. And then they got a transfer from Bucknell, a fifth-year guy, which is something new Cal's doing. His name is Nick Sestina. And if you can – that's the team – if you were to get Tyler Hero back, like that's a team that you're thinking that you're right, that they have a mix of – you'd have a junior Nick Richards. You would have sophomores in Hero and Hagens and Quickly and Montgomery, and then you have those freshmen. And that's the type of team that has the perfect balance to go out and have like a 38-2 or a 37-3, a type of season like that where you can compete and win a national championship.
Right. And well, unfortunately, we still got some time to wait here and see who's staying, who's going, and what type of team we're going to be working with next year here. But, I think we got to put a pin in it here. The madness is over. Kentucky basketball is done. But we've got some more stuff coming up here. We're not done talking about UK sports because we got to move on to our next segment here. The NFL draft is coming up here shortly, and there is going to be a lot of blue, I'm a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
This draft. So, definitely something we want to talk about here. Obviously, the number one guy that a lot of people from Kentucky are going to be talking about going pretty high is Josh Allen. He's expected to be a top 3 pick. It's supposed to – every draft board you look at, it goes Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa, Ohio State, and then Josh Allen to the Jets. Then we talk about Benny Snell, C.J. Conrad, Mike Edwards, Jones, Bunchy maybe. It's amazing just to see. I've talked about this a lot on my show, just from a historic season like Kentucky had this last year. Because I remember it wasn't too long ago, like 2 or 3 seasons ago, there were no Kentucky players drafted. Now there's a chance to have 6 or 7 drafted here.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, you had a season last year, man, that and you know it, I know it. We went through some of the worst Kentucky football seasons.
Oh,
of any team.
I still remember my first year because I came from Ohio and I grew up an Ohio State fan, so it was quite a difference to go from being a young kid watching Ohio State win national title coming here and watching us lose to Western Kentucky on a flea flicker. And the last scene going out of the stadium was Stone Cold Willow crying on my shoulder. And that's when I realized, what third dimension of football have I entered?
When your story ends with Stone Cold Willow crying on your shoulder, that's how you know where we're at as a football program. And I remember, man, like there was a game. We were up there in college, and there was a Vanderbilt game one time that literally felt like there was like 27 people there, and we got run by Vanderbilt. We got beat by Vanderbilt. Like we got killed by Vanderbilt. So going from that to last year, where you have a 10-win season, man, that's insane. Like that is crazy, and that's something that I didn't even think was possible here.
I agree.
And that kind of that's something that completely has changed my mind, is that, and now what you're talking about with the draft, we're getting these dudes like we're getting guys that are legitimate NFL players that are playing at UK. And that's not like, you've had guys in the past, like 1 or 2 guys. You've had your Tim Couch, you had your Wesley Woodyard, your Avery Williamson, you've had guys that are kind of sprinkled in through our past. But this year, you've got Josh Allen, like you've already said, that a lot of people think could be like the next Khalil Mack.
And he'll tell you himself. He'll tell you himself that that's what he wants to be.
and Khalil Mack's the best defensive player in the NFL. And Josh Allen's built in that same like hybrid defensive end, outside linebacker, can get to the quarterback type of mold. And now here's the stuff I'm reading. There's people that are saying that Lonnie Johnson's the best cornerback in the draft, and that Lonnie Johnson could go, first round, which is crazy. And then you're looking at even coming off of that, you're looking at Derek Beatty and Chris Westry, who had really good pro days. You're looking at Mike Edwards at safety. You already talked about Bunchy. You got Benny Snell, who is probably the best running back, that's ever played at this school. And the level of talent that we had this year was crazy. And it's something that I don't even really think as Kentucky fans, like, we're not going to appreciate it until they're in the NFL and we're like, crap, man, they were really good.
Yeah, I absolutely. And talking to just some other people, the two names that people get excited about when they look at this draft class, that when I've talked to friends of mine who played at UK, they say Josh Allen and CJ Conrad, they have the most upward opportunity to have the longest NFL careers there, and which I believe. Josh Allen, I mean, his resume speaks for itself. There's a reason why he's expected to be the number 3 overall pick. CJ Conrad, his production probably wasn't the best this year, but I mean, he is a huge body. He's a big tight end. Someone is going to take a chance on him, I'm sure, this year. Benny's been our heart and soul this entire season when it comes to what we talk about with Kentucky football. And he's in Mel Kiper's top 10 of running backs that are available in this draft. He won't be a first-round pick they're expecting, but they look at a third or fourth, which is probably a good spot to be in when you're a running back in this league right now.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be a first-round draft pick like Zeke Williams or anything like that. So a couple teams that they have Benny looking at right now, probably in that third, fourth round: Philadelphia, Kansas City, Chicago. Those would all be great landing spots for him.
It would, and he was, and the thing about Beanie is he is a guy, and the NFL is weird when it comes to running backs, because college football is really big on running backs. Like the running backs, a lot of times they'll win the Heisman or they'll dominate. In the NFL, running backs are really interchangeable, but because like you'll see teams like the Patriots, they'll just throw a dude out there you've never heard of, and then the next thing you know of, like, he's rushing for 150 yards in the Super Bowl. And so Beanie's a guy that if he's on the right team, and if he catches, if he just gets in the right situation where, you're looking at, week 8, week 9, when somebody goes down, you're watching NFL Red Zone, and he's got a 100-yard rushing game with a couple of touchdowns, and you're thinking, oh crap, Benny's doing good. And going back to what you said too about CJ Conrad is a guy that maybe our offense didn't utilize in the best way. But I mean, maybe I'm higher on CJ Conrad than like I should be. But I think he's a type of dude that could be like an all-pro tight end when he gets to the league.
I agree.
And his story of, like, did you hear the story about how he had the heart problems? And
No,
they
I
thought
didn't hear.
so like, right, he didn't get to participate in the NFL draft combine because when they were doing like the physical checkup on him, they found some type of like heart issue. And for a little bit of time, there was a thought that like he may never play football again. And just recently, they just recently had a second opinion and they cleared him. And so he went through NFL, the pro day at Kentucky, and did really well. And now he's the type of guy that, that health thing may scare a couple of teams, but some team's going to pick him up in a couple of years and you're going to be saying, hey, CJ Conrad made the Pro Bowl.
I agree. I think if there's anything, when I look at this group of players that are going to be coming at, I think that there are a couple players that you can have guarantees on that are going to make impacts on any roster they join. And there's guys that are definitely worth taking a chance on. CJ Conrad, Mike Edwards. I think Mike Edwards is definitely someone who's expected to be a 4th-round pick that I think is definitely worth the chance you can take on. Bunchy, do I think Bunchy's probably going to be drafted? If he is, I think he's probably going to be a later round guy or undrafted. But I think, someone to fill out your roster spots there, giving him some chances. And just, I mean, it's just crazy because it's Kentucky football we're talking about, but we're talking about a draft like we're preparing for the NBA draft. It's like, this doesn't happen. If you've been a Kentucky fan for 5 minutes, and like Andrew and I were talking about during our time here at college, you don't talk about Kentucky football like this. People are excited about getting started for Kentucky football. There was a point where when UK was on, basketball wasn't really on the best streak at the moment there. People were thinking, I can't wait for Kentucky football to start. That doesn't happen. That does not
never,
happen
never.
in Kentucky culture. And it's just crazy. But I mean, it's a great time to be a Kentucky fan. I think it's been worth the pain we had to go through in college of having Willow cry on your shoulder.
And listen, I'll tell you something else just to throw this in there. I think we're gonna be good this year too. I don't think that it's maybe a little bit of a step back. We may not have that same team. We may not have a 10-win team, but I think there's still some talent on this year's team, and I think we're in for another good year.
I agree. I mean, I think during his second year, I think our quarterback, and his name is escaping right now. I can't think of it.
Terry Wilson,
touchdown Terry. I think he's got a year under his belt. He's played some big SEC games. I think he's probably going to have a little more comfortability behind behind the O-line this year. That I think he's going to be a little more comfortable. And AJ Rose and a couple other players are going to help us kind of pick up where we left off. Is Rose going to be the same caliber running back that Snow was? Absolutely not. But I think he still is a good part we're going to have to that offense. And we'll have to see. We're going to see very shortly what type of team we're going to be dealing with here, because here in the next couple of days, April 12th is going to be the spring game for Kentucky football. So are you going to be coming up here to Lexington to check out that game?
I plan to, man. I can't miss anything Kentucky, and I'm already this season the guy I'm riding with. I'm a Lynn Bowden guy. I think Lynn Bowden is a star, man. He is one of the most talented players. He's kind of a weird guy. If you've ever listened to interviews with him or you see him his Twitter stuff, he's kind of an odd guy, but it looks like he might have matured a little bit in the off season, and it looks like, I think he's a guy, man, that you look at going into this year that you're thinking, this is the type of dude that can be the face of your program, that can be somebody. I always think back in my childhood, do you remember the impact that Michael Vick had on Virginia Tech? And you were like, man, Virginia, I still remember Virginia Tech because Mike Vick played there. Lynn Bowden's the same type of skill guy where you're you could look back and you could say, man, Lynn Bowden played at Kentucky. And so you're giving me a chance to come up Friday night and watch the blue-white game. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there.
Absolutely. So we'll be happy to see, regardless if you're a Kentucky basketball fan, Kentucky football fan, or just an overall Kentucky fan. It's a good time to be a part of this program here. So,
absolutely.
Well, Andrew, man, it's been good talking to you, brother. And we've talked a lot about a number of different things here, and we've had a lot of good topics. I'm probably going to have to make 2 different shows out of this episode. It's always good to have more content than not enough. So I love it.
And listen, man, I appreciate you having me on. Anybody that wants to, you come listen to my podcast Under the Blue Banners. You can follow me on Twitter. My podcast Twitter is at Under Banners, BANNERS, and my personal Twitter is at Andrew_W8. And Dan, I'd like to get together soon, man.
Let's do it, brother. So we'll do a Under the Blue Banners Friends in the Corner podcast crossover here soon, man.
Absolutely. It sounds awesome.
All right, Andrew. Until next time, my brother.
Dude, it was fun.
All right, and that's it for this episode of Friends in the Corner podcast. I know it was a long one, but thank you guys for sticking along with it. Thank you, Andrew, for coming on to my show and talking about all things Kentucky sports. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at UnderBanners. Be sure to like and subscribe his show on iTunes. The link will be in the description below. And you should also follow our show while you're at it. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and Spotify. Subscribe on all channels and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. And remember, you can always email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friendsinthecorner, altogether lowercase, at gmail.com. Guys, thank you again for tuning into this episode. Tune in tomorrow when we release the WrestleMania recap edition I did with Andrew as well. Well, until next time, everybody, that's a wrap.